Hello, this late May evening. Lovely day it's been. Today, for my autistic blog, I wanted to talk about agoraphobia, which many people think of as never going out of your house or never being able to leave the house and being stuck at home because of the fear of panic attacks and a whole array of symptoms. Agoraphobia comes from Greek and literally means fear of the marketplace. It was coined by Carl Friedrich Otto Westphal in 1871 when he observed 3 male patients who displayed extreme anxiety and feelings of dread when they had to enter certain public areas of the city. There are many other fight or flight symptoms associated with agoraphobia, such as dizziness, fear of collapse, not being able to breathe, palpitations, jelly legs, sweating, feeling sick, and all sorts of things. And it's not hard to see that crowded markets and marketplaces are hotbeds of sensory overload. The modern day equivalent of the outdoor market, the supermarket, is ramped up with bright artificial lights, fluorescent signs with numbers and bargains assaulting our senses at every aisle and checkout. Is it any wonder supermarkets are an agoraphobic's nightmare? It's the same with busy roads and public transport, all that noise, all those people, all that movement. Is this why autistics often suffer with agoraphobia, I wonder? The reactions to sensory overload are so similar. If you think about sensory overload and being unable to process it, your brain and nervous system and body are going to do strange things under stress. You're possibly going to go into fight or flight mode. Not everyone responds to sensory overload like this. Neurotypicals, for instance, have different or better filters and can more successfully screen out the flood of information. But it also makes sense why familiar places and routes feel safer for agoraphobics, because you learn to ignore a lot of the extrasensory information that is coming at you from all angles when you're in a familiar place. But obviously when you're in a new place, everything is, it's hard to filter out new information. My sister and I have often arrived in a new place, like a holiday venue, that's supposed to be relaxing, but after any journey, and particularly a long journey, we found it hard to get our bearings. We felt dizzy and lightheaded and needed to sort of support one another and holding on to one another, and it takes a day or two to recover. In the 90s, there was a place in Chester doing research into something called organic brain dysfunction, which was said to be associated with, if not the cause of agoraphobia. It's obviously thinking has changed because I can't find anything on the internet now, but my sister and I, both sufferers of agoraphobia at some times more than others, saw one of the practitioners who was operating on the south coast at that time. And many of the questions he asked were similar to those that we were asked before our autism assessment. And the questions relating to clumsiness and bumping into things like dyspraxia and balance, PE and riding bikes. And anyone who's ever suffered with agoraphobia will know that balance problems and fear of collapse are sort of central to the condition. They were working on the premise back, this research in the 90s, that it was a primitive reaction as seen in babies that had carried on into adulthood. But I don't know if that thinking is been replaced really. But it makes sense that under stress, trying to walk around a supermarket or buy a busy bypass when there are other stresses like flashing lights and loud noises etc., your body isn't going to respond well. You may feel dizzy and you may walk as if you've been drinking. I know that I've looked drunk sometimes when I've felt like that. Whenever I had to negotiate a supermarket, I instinctively felt better wearing sunglasses, reduces stimulation, and pushing a trolley, something to hold on to and so less likely to fall. Busy carpets and wallpaper can have the same effect, and most agoraphobics say they feel better walking out at night than in the day, again because of the reduced stimulation. Obviously it depends what's going on at night, but generally speaking there's less sensory stimulation. Many people mistake agoraphobia for fear of open spaces, and while people can feel both, there are differences. This is why being in the open countryside or on an open beach may be calming to the same person who is fearful in the busy, dizzy city. On the other hand, being in a wide open art gallery, for instance, with shiny white floors may trigger the need to escape, but this is more likely to be unnatural sensory stimulation with no natural landmarks causing the brain to react. I found an interesting article on something called kenophobia, which is about that sort of thing, which you can read more about, which I'll put in the written blog, and I'll also put something about sensory overload in the written blog. Blog, not bog. Anyway, bringing it back to writing, I have mentioned agoraphobia in my book, The Other Side of Carrie Cornish, which I spoke about in my previous blog, who I think is autistic. Anyway, well, I hope that has provided food for thought, and if you're an autistic person who is suffering or has suffered with agoraphobia, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you. Bye.